I'm Bob Ray Sanders here with Cynthia Allen, and we're here to talk about the crisis on the Texas border that's reignited, in fact, the immigration debate in this country. Both sides are weighing in, and that's what we're going to do right now. Cynthia, I'm wondering, what do you think the real situation is on the border?
Bob Ray, I think that the situation on the border is both a humanitarian crisis and a policy crisis, and I think that politicians on both sides of the aisle would agree with that, and it requires both humanitarian solutions and policy changes.
Well, I mean, I would agree with you that it requires those kinds of dual effect, but I don't see it coming from the Congress to deal with policy. They haven't dealt with immigration reform. We've been trying to do that for years. Now these kids are here and they're talking about going back to policy again, but what do we do with these children now that they're here?
Well, a lot of these kids, as is pretty well documented, are able to stay here under a 2008 law called the Wilberforce Act, which was intended to help children who are victims of human sex trafficking, not this particular kind of child that's coming here now. However, we did see the uptick in the waves of children begin in 2012 after President Obama bypassed Congress and changed immigration policy. So we have a dual problem here that needs to be addressed through multiple venues.
So we're going to blame President Obama for this crisis?
I didn't blame President Obama, but he does have responsibility.
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I mean, if the Congress is going to do something, let's do something comprehensive and let's not do it piecemeal. At the same time, I don't see them coming up with even doing what the president has asked them to do in passing $3.7 billion to try to address the problem, getting more administrative judges down there to try to process these kids, I mean, and trying to take care of them while they're here. There
actually is bipartisan support for sending more administrative judges or immigration judges to the border. That's part of the piece of legislation that was introduced by Representative Cuellar and Senator Cornyn, that they have requested 40 additional judges be sent to the border, which is the same, that's part of what the appropriation that the president has asked for requested.
Right, which is, and I see John Cornyn, pardon me for saying this, but well, don't pardon me. John Cornyn is grandstanding. I mean, first of all, that bill will never get through the Senate, I don't think, because he's not trying to get these kids processed in 7 days. That's unrealistic. I don't think it's going to happen. And he's throwing something out there, and what's going to happen? Nothing, except he'll have a chance to blame the president again.
Well, the thing is, it's a bipartisan, bicameral bill. There's a Democrat on that bill.
Democrat.
And the fact of the matter is, we have to do something before the July recess. If we don't, we're not going to pass immigration reform before the July recess. I mean, it's ridiculous for us to even debate that. But this bill is at least an attempt at bipartisanship in both houses to help address this particular situation. It might not be the perfect bill, but it's a place to start.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we also need to do something about these people who are meeting buses and yelling at kids who are being transferred to facilities where they can be taken care of. These crazy people out there who are calling these kids names, calling their parents names. What do we do about them? Because, I mean, to me, that is totally un-American to me.
Well, I'm not going to defend the people who are calling these kids invaders and illegals. I don't think that's appropriate. They are exercising their First Amendment rights as they're entitled to do in this country. I think what we need to do is talk about this in a way that encourages people to have sympathy, because I think you can be sympathetic and be humanitarian and be charitable without undermining your own principles. You can go and you can donate money to Catholic Charities of Fort Worth, for example, who's been a huge part of dealing with this issue, but still believe that the best thing for this country and for these children is for them to go home.
Well, I mean, we have to do what is in the best interest of the children, which is, I think, that 2008 law says we must do, and going home, as you say, may not be in their best interest. After all, many of them are fleeing violence. They're obviously fleeing poverty and a lot of other things. Many of them already have family here, and they're trying to reunite with them. What may be in the best interest of those kids is that they remain, and we have to be ready to accept that fact.
Now, I mean, you make some fair points, but under international law, most of them will not qualify as refugees, and we have to enforce the laws of our country. And the laws of our country say that they don't meet the standard that would allow them to stay here. And the problem is that the longer that we let them stay here and await hearings, the less likely it is that they're going to go home. And what about all those people who are waiting in the process to get here through legal means?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I mean, we won't know if they don't meet those standards until we go before administrative judges and let them decide whether or not they meet those standards. I don't think we can sit here today and say those kids don't meet those standards. We don't know what those kids are facing when they go back home.
Well, under the Cornyn-Cuellar bill, they can request to go before an immigration judge, and an immigration judge who is qualified to make that determination would make that determination.
Well, I mean, well, let's go through the process. Let's not talk about sending people back within 7 days, because that's impossible to do.
I don't think that's impossible to do. That's what the law says, and I think that Congress can adjust. Maybe they need to adjust those numbers, but the point is that the humanitarian thing to do, we can't just say that it's the reflexive, let them stay. We need to think about this, not just have emotions about it. The right thing to do isn't to let them stay here and to send them back a year and a half later. It might be to process them as quickly as possible.
Well, obviously we're not going to solve this problem, and Congress probably won't either, but if you have questions or comments or anything you want to do, just read our columns and post online at startelegram.com.